السلام عليكم. وياكم ايمن الهاشمي. هذا كريس من قناة نوفريدج. نبي نعرفكم على كل منتجات الايرسوفت اللي بتشوفونها في قناة نوفريدج. هذه فقط بتكون حصريا على قناة أسلحة هوائية أو رجل الأسلحة. هنا بتشوف كل الأشياء اللي بتعرفونها عن الايرسوفت وغير عن الايرسوفت ورأيي كريس في هذا الموضوع. يعطيكم العافية، نشوفكم قريب.
Hey everyone, this is NOVRITSCH. I'm here with Ayman and he's gonna ask me some questions. So, what are the questions about?
Can you tell us about your beginning in airsoft and what is the positive and negatives in airsoft?
I started very young. I started with 14 years, which is actually not legal in Austria, but I still did it anyways because I was really curious. It was just a group of friends going into the forest of Austria, to just some random forest and just shooting each other with skiing goggles on. And from here it went into a more official direction. I actually founded a club, and from there I think you know the rest of the story. I bought some cameras, I bought a sniper rifle, and here we are. The whole thing turned into my job basically. Negatives and positives of airsoft. I think there's one aspect which I think is negative and positive at the same time. That airsoft is not really competitive. I think on the one hand it's a good thing because it's a gentleman's sport and people come here just for the fun of it. Even they play with guns that make no sense whatsoever, like a shotgun in a forest for the fun of it, or maybe they just bring a knife and try a challenge. So that's good because it brings variety into the sport. But at the same time, because it's not competitive, I think it's limited in its growth. Because when you look at the very big sports, all of them are competitive. When you look at soccer, when you look at football or ice hockey or whatnot, where there's a lot of people watching, all of these are competitive. So it's a good thing and a bad thing at the same time. Mm-hmm.
In your opinion, in airsoft weapons, do you see the improvement such as patterns, designs, as the firearms improvement?
Mm-hmm.
Or there is something missing?
I think in both worlds there's not that much improvement, to be brutally honest. When you look at firearms development, not that much changed in the past, like 40 years. Honestly, I think both are quite limited in their innovation. And I know a lot of people will hate to hear this, but when you compare it to way bigger markets with way more money behind, like let's say phones, for example, you see much more development in these areas, or cars or whatnot. In the firearms world, I think there's not that much. There's always like incremental small changes, but there's not like that one really revolutionary stuff. It's still based on very old concepts, how all of these guns work. When it comes to airsoft, I think it's pretty much the same. Most airsoft guns are based on Japanese designs that are like 20, 30, sometimes even 40 years old. Not that much innovation going on. And I also think that when you look into the airsoft industry, I feel like the big airsoft companies are not really driving innovation that much. It's usually more the hobbyists and like small companies here and there, just like a couple people who make innovative tuning parts. And then the big companies kind of get inspired by these innovative tuning parts, which I don't know if that's the way how it should be. I think it should be the big companies that make the big money who should be innovating and not, taking the designs from the small guys and implementing it into their guns. So innovation-wise in airsoft, I also don't think there's that much going on. 40 years ago, 30 years ago, 20 years ago, lots of innovation. The gas blower came out, the AEG came out, the first, HPA system. Well, that was very different HPA back then. But all of this stuff happened. Since then, there is progress, but it's kind of slow, I think. What I wish that would happen is that, again, the big companies would actually take budget to put it into development, and I don't really see it happening that much.
For the third question, what is the reason, you think, for firearms lovers to quit airsoft, or for firearms lovers to use or to start with airsoft?
Okay, let's start with the reasons why you should start airsoft if you're training with firearms. If you train with firearms, to kind of be ready for actual combat, if that's your intention, if you don't just do it for, the fun of it and just funny plinking. If you really think you're gonna need this in a real life situation, I do think that airsoft is really good, as a complementary. Because a shooting range is usually very static, and there is dynamic shooting range, but it's nothing compared to an airsoft field where people are running, where you are entering rooms that you've never seen before, where you have to learn clearing those rooms. You get the adrenaline from being shot at, BBs passing you. It's obviously very different from, a real bullet passing you. The adrenaline is going to be different, but it still gives you some idea of like a battlefield dynamic. So I do think that if that's your thing, if you want to train for combat, airsoft is a must, or simunition or something like this, but that's again, way less accessible. There's lots of disadvantages to it and so on. When it comes to why you should not do airsoft when you're training real steel, I think a big aspect is how airsofters treat safety. There's very little safety in airsoft. People, have their fingers on the trigger. They have no muscle discipline. The magazine is all the time in. It happens not too little that there's like accidental discharges in safe zones and so on. So don't learn safety from airsofters, that's for sure. But yeah, again, for the combat training, I think airsoft it's quite a must actually. And you also see it, like when you look at the big influences in the real steel world, you do see them transition over to airsoft slightly for, complementary training.
In terms of airsoft, what do you think is the most realistic airsoft weapons in terms of realism?
Most realistic one is, I think pretty much this one. It is the Rare Arms base design. It is a shell ejecting gas gun, so you do have cartridges in here. BBs gets loaded from the front. And operation wise, it is, let's see if there's a cartridge in there. Yes, there is. So if you open it, actually the cartridge comes out, and on each shot it ejects the cartridge. It is gas blowback, so you pull the trigger. No, there's no gas inside right now, but it is very, very realistic. And also when you take apart this gun, you will find similarities to real firearms inside these things. Sorry about that. This assembly is very similar. The trigger group is extremely similar. Well, there was some gas inside apparently. Yeah, so this is for sure the most realistic one. However, it comes with the disadvantage of being not that reliable. Like, I gotta say that, I played with it. It's not that easy. If you're looking for something more viable, where if you don't accept this many champs, you can look at something like the SSP-18, which is a gas blowback pistol. It cycles just like a real gun, and you can really, you can train how do you bring the gun up, how do you bring it towards the target, how do you line your sights, or how do you get the dot into your optic. Reloads, recoil management, obviously not, like you don't have that much recoil, but just basic aiming, basic drawing, basic reloads, and pushing all the buttons, being very secure with when it comes to manipulating a gun. This is a great option for sure. If you're now wondering why it's so colorful, that's not a must. These pistols are available in pure black, but in airsoft there is this fashion going on right now where people enjoy flashy colors, so that's why we installed some of them on this one.
So Chris, do you have anything else you would like to add for Arab communities for airsoft?
Yeah, for sure. Ayman asked me to show something that hasn't been seen yet that we are developing, and I do have some surprise here. So this has not been shown yet to the public. It is our magnifier red dot combination, because in the real firearm world this is now a quite trendy and hot accessory which a lot of people are using. You probably know these like flip to the side magnifiers, where the magnifier then, when you flip it away, it's kind of like on the side and it's hanging from the gun. It obstructs your view. It's heavy. It makes it, not balanced anymore. So this is, very, very similar to what you're seeing right now in the real steel world, but we made it in a very affordable fashion. What makes it great in airsoft is obviously the height. Like, it's a nice high red dot, so even if you have a mask on, you can keep your head straight, get on target real quick without you having to kind of like lean into the gun. At the same time, if you want to shoot at longer ranges, you can just get up the magnifier and you have that 4 times magnification. So you can, if there's a further target, you want to track your BBs, you can do that. And if you go into CQB, you just flip it down. No buttons to press. It's literally, flip it up, flip it down. That's it. It's quite sturdy, quite nice. And it's the kind of setup where when you go play CQB, you don't even have to take it off. You just flip it down. It's not in the way, and it's nice and handy. So this is coming in a couple months from now. I think we're looking at 5 months from today. So that's going to be a really exciting product.